Infrastructure and Regulatory Services Scrutiny Committee, called to consider the emerging library transformation plan. Sorry, I'll go to the right page. We're not, just a little bit of housekeeping to kick us off. We're not expecting a fire alarm today, so if the alarm does sound, please make your way to the nearest exit and congregate on the Cova lawn, which rather temptingly is looking very sunny and glorious this morning. So please make sure that you've switched off or silenced your mobile phones. People joining us remotely, please can you make sure that you mute your microphones and turn off your cameras unless you're speaking. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, so members, please ensure that you talk into your microphones when talking. Cabinet members and officers are invited to keep their introductions to items brief and concentrating on the key points that they wish the committee to be aware of. And likewise, members, if you can keep comments and observations concise and to the point. He said, saying the same thing twice. Consider not asking a question if it has already been answered. I'd also remind members that as we're in the sensitive pre-election period, they have received advice from the monitoring officer who is here this morning and will be watching you like a hawk. So please be mindful of that advice. Thank you. Our chair has given her apologies. So we need to elect a vice chair. Councillor Kearney.
Could I propose Councillor Abbott?
Certainly. Would anybody like to second that? Councillor Reid, Councillor Stevens. Are there any other nominations? In which case, can I just have a nod of consent from you all? Thank you. Councillor Abbott, come and take your place at my right hand. Whilst Councillor Abbott is settling in, we have received apologies from Councillor Brown, Councillor Davis, who's I see joined us online, Councillor Hookway and Councillor Sellis. As we have members of the public here this morning, I'd like to invite officers and cabinet members to introduce themselves briefly, name and rank and serial number only, please. So we'll start with Max, just so that everybody knows who's here.
Good morning, I'm Max Perry, Scrutiny and Democratic Services Officer.
Good morning, Sarah Lindsay, Clark.
Good morning, I'm Donna Manson, Chief Executive, and welcome. It's lovely to see you here representing your communities.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Maria Price. I'm the Director for Legal and Democratic Services and the Monitoring Officer, and lovely to see you all here.
Good morning, everyone. Steve Brown, Director of Public Health and Communities.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor James Wachkowski and I'm the Cabinet Member for Finance.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cheryl Coswell-Hunkin, Cabinet Member for Rural Affairs, which includes libraries. Lovely to see you here. I've met most of you, so thank you for coming along.
Good morning, everyone. Simon Kitchen, Assistant Director for Communities.
Good morning, Jason Allen. I'm Communities Business and Commissioning Lead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Kitto from Libraries Unlimited.
And I'm Kate Turner. I'm Head of Libraries at Libraries Unlimited.
Thank you very much. We're also joined by Councillor Wilson and sundry other councillors whose names are, I can see Councillor Bickley and others online. So it's wonderful. Declarations of interest. Could I remind members of the committee to declare any interests they may have in any item to be considered at this meeting prior to any discussion taking place on that item. I'm not aware of any items requiring urgent attention. We have 5 members of the public who've asked to speak to this item, and 3 minutes. We would ask you to restrict your comments to 3 minutes each. This doesn't betoken any lack of interest on our part, but is just for the management of our time. I'll call you. So Councillor Faithful submitted written comments which have been circulated to members of the committee and that we will take as read. So I'll, and then the order I have people in is Marilyn Spidell, Denise Maluish, Councillor Elliott, and then Mr. Jeff Woodman. So I'll call you in that order. Councillor Elliott, could I ask you to turn your camera off while you're not speaking? Just, I'm sure you wouldn't want to distract. Thank you. So Marilyn Spidell, if you would care to. Yep.
Sorry, can you turn on the microphone?
Good morning. Our St. Mary Library people have come here this morning to do 2 things, to thank you and to make a plea. The thank you is for the consultation. The document was ill-conceived and ill-judged, but it made us stop and think. It made us aware of our library and what it means to us, how much we love it, how much we rely on it. So thank you for that, for making us aware and active. We actively tried to understand the consultation, which made a fundamental mistake of misunderstanding what a library is. The first question on the consultation asked us what we thought about Devon's libraries. And the answer is, nobody ever thought about Devon's libraries. People only think about their own library down the road. Libraries are local. Ottery cares about its library, shown by the wonderful, widely publicized demo we had in February. And you may recall, over 1,800 residents and nearly 30 traders signed a petition against this consultation, which leads us to our plea. You will have seen the statistics in your library needs assessment. The regional analysis clouds performance. We've analyzed the statistics in terms of staffed opening hours. We have copies for all of you to read and digest. And the analysis clearly shows that Ottery Library is not in Band C, but is already functioning as a Band B library and should be a rural hub up in a Band A. Looking at book issues, we rank 15th out of 50, and we outperform every single library in Band B. We're on a par with 2 Band A libraries in Tavistock and Tiverton. In all other metrics, footfall, active users, home delivery, we're functioning as a Band B. Book reservations data was excluded from your assessment, but we rank 11th out of 50. We average 400 reservations a month. We read a lot. And since COVID, book issuing has declined in Ottery by 2.5%. But in Devon, it declined by 19% and nationally by 23%. We demonstrate excellent value for money over every measurement. The data for income generation was excluded also, but we raised 17% of our own income last year. So we're a Band B and already should be a Band A rural hub. We serve a 16,000 population.
Mrs. Spidell, could I ask you to think about drawing your remarks to a close? You've had your 3 minutes.
Okay. I just want to thank you, make the plea, and remember what the Manic Street preachers said. Libraries gave us power. Don't take it away. I've got copies of these.
Thank you very much. Denise Meluish.
Hello, good morning. I'm the chair of Friends of Ottery Library, and I'm also representing the 1,800 people who signed our petition to keep our library hours safe, which is really amazing that we had such support. So I want to raise 3 points. Firstly, about children. In the report, it states that there is strong opposition to reductions in opening hours, particularly where this would affect children, older residents, and those without transport. Very typical for Ottery. And if you consider the significance of libraries for children, it ranges from them getting used to it from baby way, bounce and ride, the amazing reading challenge. It's not scary or overwhelming. It's a safe place where they can grow in confidence, develop literacy and communication skills, becoming independent in choosing and returning books, and even learning how to navigate the buttons on the self-service device. You watch children and they're delighted as they succeed. Libraries expand horizons, and always with the support of a professional librarian. Restricting opening hours would mean the library becomes congested and staff lack the capacity to support young readers. Already the cuts have meant that our librarian has had to cancel important children's events and school outreach. Secondly, a standardisation approach just doesn't work. Libraries are sustained with a balance of staff, volunteers and technology. What we don't need is a standardised approach of imposed hours and days. It needs to be adapted to fit the circumstances of each library and community. Open access is really libraries without staff, without the welcome of the welcoming staff, and we have amazing staff. Volunteers are not the simple answer. They need local staff to train them, support them and appreciate them. It's a finely tuned relationship requiring the librarian's input that cannot be done on a regional basis with distant volunteer coordinators. I've managed volunteers and I'm also a volunteer, so I understand that it's a real challenge to get the balance right. Thirdly and lastly, we need more consultation on a local level. We need the opportunity to determine the future of our library. Give library friends the chance to support their libraries by fundraising to maintain our opening hours. Allow us to help the staff, friends and local council plan the future of Ottery Library. We care passionately. We need to be in Band B or Rural A hub. We really need to keep our hours. Ottery must remain a vibrant, welcoming, high-performing space, ensuring well-being for children, families, older people, vulnerable people, and it needs to be accessible. There's no mention in the report of accessibility. There are different vulnerable people who need to be included to look after the whole community. So I just hope you can really think about these points, and thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we will be thinking about these points, although I'm a bit disappointed that you haven't got a Manic Street Preachers quote for us. Councillor Elliott, you'd like to turn your camera back on now and unmute yourself, then we'll be...
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Good morning. It was fantastic to learn what a great response there was to the library consultation, and encouraging to note in the interim report at least some recognition that the library service offered in each community should reflect their different needs. I do have to pick up on one phrase. Respondents have said that they may use Open Plus technology in the report and suggest the correction to some respondents. as I know firsthand from my own community and others that some people responded with a very definite no to this proposal. What I want to address today are the missing responses from those who found the consultation too difficult or confusing to complete. From my own efforts to encourage people to respond in Ilfracombe in different venues online and in person, I can feed back that technological issues such as pages not loading, not allowing the respondent to skip a question at points, and finding it difficult to toggle between what was proposed and the questionnaire meant that some gave up. A significant minority of people in Ilfracombe don't have digital access or struggle with technology and completed the paper copy, but it came without information about the proposals attached, which is a major omission as many people wanted to fill it out at home. My feedback was that there were lots of questions about the proposals and a lack of understanding. Many people found the consultation too long, too complicated, and there were too many proposals to unpack. It definitely did not take 5 to 10 minutes as suggested. I feel that this consultation failed to consider how to connect with the most hard to reach members of our community who use our library. The elderly, people in poverty, people with English as a second language, people with learning impairments, those who use books on wheels, the vulnerable. It should have been shorter and focused on one proposal. There should have been engagement events to answer questions. Paper copies should have had an explanatory sheet attached about the proposals, and both online and paper could have been more user-friendly. But above all, Devon County Council should have visited each library and engaged with users, gathering information before devising their proposals. I feel that this would have quickly shown that standard cuts to hours based on population size, the assumption that every community could provide volunteers or wanted to, and that open access would be suitable for all would have been quickly dispelled. Communities have many variables to consider in regard to library use, and one size doesn't fit all. I hope that members recognise from this interim report the strength of feeling about how important libraries and their skilled staff are to their communities, in many cases replacing the loss of amenities and services elsewhere. However, my theme to note is that every library community is different, something which wasn't recognised in the proposals put forward, and I hope that analysis of the responses will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Elliott, and congratulations on your brevity. You came in 10 seconds under your 3 minutes, so well done. Jeff Woodman, if you'd like to.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? My name is Jeff Woodman. I am the chair of the Budleigh Salterton Friends of the Library. In all my experience, I have never known a single issue or subject that has so engaged the community as the proposal to reduce the library services in Devon. But I can only speak about Budleigh Salterton. But I do speak with experience as a past councillor in Bedford and chair of the Bedfordshire Association of Local Government. The proposal was a real upset to many people in our community. It produced rage and indignation because our library in Budleigh Salterton would have seen its hours cut from 27 hours a week to just 15. Now, we get about 1,000 footfalls a week through our library doors. Reducing it to that amount would mean that we'd have to deal with 70 people per hour coming through, overwhelming the staff, impossible to manage. The proposal produced startling reactions in our local community. We wrote to every one of our elected representatives who broadly supported remaining the same with our library situation. We had tremendous local media support, both on the social media, in the local press, and on the local radio. A public meeting was arranged in Budleigh Salterton, which was attended by so many people, the hall could not accommodate the numbers, and a second meeting had to be held for people to voice their opinions, which broadly said, keep our libraries the same, please. Many of you here were there, so you knew the strength of opinion of that meeting. We managed to send around 800 hard copy replies to the consultation back to Devon County Council, and countless numbers were completed digitally as well. So there was a great feeling that we had to express ourselves to Devon County Council and oppose the reduction of library services. We've even written to Her Majesty the Queen. As you know, Queen Camilla is patron of the National Year of Reading 2026. Broadly, her response through her office was that she totally supports public libraries, and she sees them, and I quote, as a vital part of community cohesion. Now, we agree with her. Who would disagree with the Queen? But we agree because we see libraries not just as books, reading, and literacy. We see them as a core asset in the community, a multifaceted asset, which enables people. I will conclude now.
Thank you.
Which allows people to use it as a social hub, a centre of well-being. So our plea from Budleigh Salterton to Devon County Council, please do not decimate our libraries, use them as a core community asset. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Manic Street Preachers and the Queen, the bar has been set very high for members. Thank you. Normally, I like to sort of go into the report section of meetings by framing things, but I think the speakers we've heard from have done a fairly good job of outlining the key issues. So, Councillor Cottle-Hunkin, if you'd like to present the report.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone for coming and taking the time and the effort to come and speak today. It's really appreciated. And I've visited Budleigh and I've visited Ottery and also Ilfracombe. So it's great that you've come today as well to speak to all councillors and publicly. And I just want to assure you that we are listening, and the consultation, you've highlighted different flaws that you perceive, but actually the response that we've had has been absolutely incredible, and the support that's coming forward from different organisations and also local town and parish councils is something really positive that has come from the consultation. So I really hope that we can work together to make it stronger, make our libraries stronger. We know that they're evolving, and we're putting together a vision, and today really is to listen and get feedback and feed into that vision even more before any decisions are made, because no decisions have been made. The consultation went out, we welcome everyone's responses, and following that, that's when the decisions will be made by Cabinet next month. And I also want to welcome Libraries Unlimited. Thank you for attending today, and also for your support. Specifically, Kate has organised a lot of trips. I've visited, I think it's 28 libraries in the past sort of 6 months. We went to a lot in March, didn't we? But it's been amazing to meet with the volunteers and the librarians and the local communities right across Devon. We've been to all different parts of Devon, which has been amazing. And that has highlighted as well how every library is unique and every community is different. And there's different opportunities as well within each library community. So yeah, I welcome. We've also got, it was mentioned in the report, we had a briefing with councillors and we set up a cross-party working group specifically to look at libraries and the vision. And I have to say, it's the best that I've seen cross-party working as a council, because everyone was really, we had every single party present, represented, and everyone had the same sort of goal to make libraries as strong as they can be, and working into the future, making sure that we make the right decisions in May. So I'm feeling positive about the future. Yeah, I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will come to members in a moment, but if we can sort of sort out a couple of things, could we, from what we've heard from already from members of the public, it seems that we may have, not by our own will, but because that's what central government has decreed we do, because it's a statutory consultation, that the consultation process might slightly have muddied the waters. Perhaps could we ask you, maybe yourself, Simon, if you could sort of just set out the differences between a statutory and a sort of a voluntary consultation, and why the consultation took the form that it did.
I'll have a go. I mean, so we've worked closely with the Department for Culture, Media and Sport to help inform and shape how the consultation should be delivered. And obviously, you know, unfortunately, in recent years, there have been lots of library consultations. So there is lots of best practice in terms of how consultations could be constructed. I think one of the challenges we've got in Devon is the fact that, I mean, challenges in consultation terms is a fantastic opportunity in the real world, but it's the fact we've got 50 libraries. And obviously, as we've heard loud and clear today, they're all very different. So consulting simultaneously on 50 libraries is a real challenge. And I hear very much Terry Elliot's challenge around the complexity of the consultation, when really we had to consult in telling the story 50 times in 50 slightly different ways. So in terms of the opening hours, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport consider that what is the current provision is the council's statutory provision. So so essentially that's what we legally are required to provide. And I think we could discuss that. And I think there are different opinions on that, but essentially we were looking to provide statutory consultation on the proposed reductions in those hours, thereby a reduction in the council statutory provision. Is that helpful? Is that what you were seeking?
I think so. We may return to this in a moment, but yes. And the other thing before we kick off, I have to confess, I mean, the intention of this meeting was that it would be able to look at at least an early overview of the consultation responses and the emerging ideas in relative detail for the future of the service. And in that context, I have to confess I was disappointed in how thin on detail the report in front of us is, and slightly alarmed in that we're 2 weeks away from when this will go to cabinet, or the papers will. So the stuff that isn't in this report, have you got, is 2 weeks feels like a heck of a rush to get it done in time for. So where are we now? Hopefully we're you know, I appreciate that this report had to be submitted in advance. Hopefully we've moved on a bit from that.
Yes, I mean, time has not been our friend in terms of the different kind of logistics around the papers and signing them off and getting them published and so on. We were still, when we were publishing this, still in the final throes of inputting all of the paper surveys. To give you an idea, we had 4,000 paper surveys that we were inputting. A lot of those came in the last 2 to 3 weeks. So, you know, resource wise, that took a little bit longer. And I think, you know, certainly at the members briefing, you know, I wanted to make it clear that when we had the numbers and we were happily verifying them, that we would be able to provide them. And obviously with these reports, then the report that you have in front of you, we were able to pick out the general feeling in terms of what we could say. And this was written obviously over a couple of weeks ago. We finished doing all the paper surveys. We're in the process now during this week, just making sure that we can verify all of the charts and everything that we'll be providing to Cabinet. That will give a lot more detail in terms of the overall response. The actual response per libraries might take a little bit longer, but obviously, you know, that's really important data that we commit to publishing once we have that available.
So that's the response to the consultation. My understanding, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, was that what was going to Cabinet is our response to those responses. And again, I come back to it seems like a very short period of time to work that out.
We've obviously been working on this for several months, and in order to make sure that, you know, whatever we put in front of, or certainly in terms of the recommendations, and to be able to inform Cabinet to make sure that they're making the right calls, is that, you know, we've spent the last few weeks just verifying that data. I think it's really important that, you know, if we, you know, set out certain things that we want to achieve through the consultation, that we do make sure that that's backed up, and we're just making sure that rather than get things out that are not quite ready, that we're actually comfortable that they are.
Councillor Ketchin, you, and then you, Councillor Richardson.
I agree with the chair that, and I understand the reasons why the paper is so thin. In the room, however, we have several experts on the state of play of libraries and the sort of potential trajectory, and I would ask the chair that he might invite Chief Executive Libraries Unlimited and the Head of Library Service and Customer Service to perhaps make some sort of comments that perhaps the committee can digest, because they also have some contextual understanding of where we're at over and above what the consultation will tell us.
It's my intention to do so, but perhaps not just yet. If Kate and Alex can sit there patiently a little longer, that would be great. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair, and I echo exactly your concerns that you said just now. Just to delve into this report, it is quite disappointing that we've convened this committee to basically go over things I'm pretty sure every councillor sat here and member of the public knew already. People don't want a reduction in opening hours. You know, people are upset and worried about the situation with our libraries. There's a few particular points in the report that concern me, just the way information is being presented to us. The first is the point saying at least 50% of respondents say the proposed hours would affect the frequency of their visits. As a councillor, I take issue with at least 50% because that could be 80%. You know, it's difficult for us as councillors to have a figure of at least 50%. I don't think it builds the picture very well. And then just below that, saying that there's been a positive response to volunteering with over 6,000 people saying they'd volunteer. That's fair enough. If my local library was on the brink of collapse, I'd be sticking my hand up as well. But that's out of necessity, you know, because people don't want their libraries to go. I understand we're not shutting libraries, completely respect that, but there is this fear in our communities that our libraries are being attacked, I suppose, with, you know, changes being brought up. So, you know, personally, I'd quite like to see more data, you know, a bit more analysis, because I'm not being told anything I didn't know already. And it's quite disappointing, Chair, I'm sure you would reiterate this, that we're sat here today just being told things we already know. I completely understand the time restraints and, you know, the work that needs to go in analysing particularly all the paper copies, but quite frankly, if I was to sit here and make a recommendation to Cabinet, it would be, well, it's quite clear. The main points from this are people don't want their opening hours to be reduced. And so I'd say to Cabinet, please don't reduce hours. But I know in this committee and others, we've talked about thinking more smartly about our opening hours for libraries. So looking at particular service users and what hours suit them. I'll just give you an example. I was a significant library user during my exam years, which wasn't too long ago. But I know a lot of young people rely on libraries as one of their only places where they can get out the house and do their GCSE and A-level revision. Some libraries are open till 6 p.m. and some later, but obviously that's not every day. And in rural communities, there isn't anywhere else for young people to go and get out the house to do revision. So, and there's also a lot of young people who are looking for work. And it's a great, part-time opportunity to either volunteer or get involved with their local library and, have that first job as well. So I think there's lots.
Councillor Richardson, can I interrupt? Because I think you had some quite specific questions at the beginning, and I wouldn't want those to get lost in your more general observations on the value of libraries, which, again, I would concur with. So,
just to go back to the specific question. So it's particularly on the way this report's been presented, and I'd like a bit more clarity, actually, if we have it, on exactly, what percentage of respondents said the proposed hours would affect the frequency of visits, and are people saying, yes, I'll stick my hand up to volunteering only out of necessity because they're worried about the future of their library? Thank you.
I don't know if anybody wants to pick that up.
Thank you. Sorry, looking at different spreadsheets and things, but it is, and please, these numbers are still under verification, but it's in the region of 53% of respondents said that they would be affected by the changes in the opening hours. And in terms of the volunteering question, then the purpose of the question really was to gauge interest in volunteering. I think people have different motivations, perhaps. Some might have put that within the comments section, and obviously there's quite a bit of work in going through all of those. But I think that what the output will prove is that certainly we were definitely pleasantly surprised by the volume of people that were willing to say that, both take the effort to fill in the questionnaire in the first place, but also to then say that they will be willing to look at volunteer opportunities.
Thank you. I'll come to you in a moment, and we will have a broader discussion, Councillor Richardson. So your well-made points about the value of libraries. I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Mitchell. But another frustration is that talking to Councillor Cottle-Hunkin, Councillor Buczkowski, and others informally, there is a positive narrative about this process, which is that we're seeking to change libraries in a way that reflects and adapts to not only financial constraints, but also the changing nature of their use and their function in our communities. And I think this was what I was trying to get to through understanding the consultation process and the very specific nature of that, is that, so that's on the one side, and then on the and then there is the negative narrative about this, which is that it's cuts, it's reductions, it's reliance on volunteers. And I think, would you agree that that second one has kind of overshadowed or has got in the way of the positive narrative that we see the potential here for transforming our library service for the better. I just there.
I just think it's important to know that we haven't made any decisions yet. This is all part of the consultation, and we are listening, and there's a lot of real positive opportunities arising out of this. And I completely agree, like we need to get the balance right. And we are listening. But without the consultation, we wouldn't have got a lot of this information and a lot of this support, which I hope that we can all work together and create even stronger. It sounds cheesy, but working together, we can make them even stronger. And without the consultation, we wouldn't have got all of this knowledge, and people wouldn't have come forward, would they? Without this happening, it would have carried on plodding along. I just think this is the way that we can create a more resilient future for our libraries. We've always said we're going to keep all of our libraries open. We put out the consultation, and now we're looking at what we can do working together to make them strong for the future. So I'm feeling positive about it. I take all of the concerns on board, but we can work through it together, and I'm sure there's a positive future for our libraries, or community hubs or rural hubs, whatever term you want to call them.
Yes, Mr. Kitchen. I mean, we are only 3 weeks away from. It's great saying we haven't taken any decisions yet, but we are taking 3 decisions in 3 weeks' time. So we will have taken some decisions fairly soon, if my understanding is correct. Mr. Kitchen.
Yeah, thank you. Just to pick up, I think the point you're making, I think you're right that, I mean, firstly, libraries mean all kinds of different things to different people, both from a local perspective as we've heard, but also, you know, the consultation has heard from lots of people who never use the library and have no intention of using the library. It's heard from lots of young people, both through the consultation, but separately, as we've heard from the Youth Council, who, as Councillor Richardson says, find that engaging with the library is really difficult because they're at school at college or college when the library's open, or, you know, perhaps through neurodiversity, find a busy library quite difficult to engage with. So one of the things we've tried to explore is the use of Open Plus, and again, Alex and Kate might tell us a little bit more about the operational kind of impact and kind of benefits of that. But, you know, that's one of the things we're exploring around how, and I appreciate some people see that as a mitigation against cuts, but also, you know, we want to explore that as a way of expanding opening hours, and again, creating the opportunity for young people to come into the space when otherwise they feel difficult to engage with the library. So I take your point. We were trying to do lots of things throughout the consultation, but I think you know, giving credit to the 25,500 people who've responded, they've done both, and they've responded to both the challenges around the reductions, but they've also embraced some of the positive opportunities. So I think we've heard loud and clear from people that they've responded positively to both of those messages.
Councillor Davis, thank you, Mr. Kitchen. Councillor Davis, I see you've got your hand up, but I'm going to come to Councillor Mitchell first because he's been waiting patiently.
Thank you, Chair. We're apparently, as an authority, and all authorities in Devon at the moment, business as usual. My concern is that in 10 weeks' time, business will not be as usual because we'll know the results of local government reform, reorganisation, or whatever you wish to call it. And there's a potential this service becomes disaggregated if there are a number of unitary authorities within Devon. So I think there's a danger of setting up a false perspective to our residents that somehow this potentially is the long-term solution and everything will be happy, off we go, etc., because we do not know until those 10 weeks the structure of local government in Devon, the authorities that are responsible for this service, whether they will wish to work together with Devon Libraries, or they wish to operate their own, or whether they wish to work with their town and parish councils at a lower level. Different patterns might well emerge. So I'm somewhat concerned. I would hope that there will be some recognition in the final report of the uncertainties that lie ahead. This is not a set in concrete package that is going to solve all the issues for years to come. It will solve the situation up until May or April 2028, when the new authorities take control for this service. So I do hope that health warning appears in the final report and recommendation to Cabinet, because I think it is not our job to give people false hope when it might be a different situation in 2 to 3 years' time. And in relation to the lack of information available at this stage, and apparently the land of plenty in 2 weeks, if we might take a biblical expression there, I am somewhat concerned that this committee is a scrutiny committee, but in fact we've had nothing to scrutinise except platitudes which we all agree with and all fully support. But I would point out to members that we all have the power of call in after a Cabinet decision, so it can come back to this committee and all the evidence be properly scrutinised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. I've got several people wanting to speak, so I'll come to Councillor Davis next, then Councillor Reid, and then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I'm sorry I can't be with you today. So the point I was going to make has been partly covered by Councillor Mitchell and very eloquently. The Cabinet member referred to calling the libraries community hubs and or rural hubs, and I'm certainly concerned that this might be the direction which the Cabinet are thinking of going in. Of course, we have no idea because the papers are completely silent on the matter. What I would like to say is Councillor Mitchell makes a very good point. It is valid. One thing we do know is there is, excuse me, local government reorganisation, and that we will know in July. There is absolutely no point in upsetting the public any further by talking about future visions for libraries that we may or may not have as a whole Devon. And I would like that taken into account when we do come to any decision, although I can't think we can come to any decision whatsoever on this very thin report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Eade.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said by members so far. And just to build specifically on the concern about this tight turnaround from quite a high level non-specific report to in 2 weeks' time Cabinet being given a set of specific recommendations which we won't have looked at. What is the intention in terms of this scrutiny committee? Are we going to see these recommendations, again, presumably not before it goes to Cabinet because there's no time? Is the intention that it will be brought back to us so we can properly see all the recommendations and scrutinise them after it's been to Cabinet and they've made a decision? What's the intention there?
I look to my left for
executive decision. This will be going straight to Cabinet. There isn't time for it to come back prior to going to Cabinet. So I think the route's probably already been identified by Councillor Mitchell if that was the case, but there's no intention to come back following this scrutiny meeting.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Apologies, I can't get my camera to work at the moment. Like other councillors, I'm going to say that I agree with everything that's been said so far. I am really concerned, and actually I'm a little bit annoyed that we haven't got detail today, because I think there's been so much worry in the public domain about the consultation, and I feel like a lack of detail at this very close stage to decisions in May is really not helpful to us as councillors in our communities, where we have to, and quite rightly should be, able to answer questions about what's developing. I'd like to really know what the reasons are for the timescales. Obviously, probably naively thinking that can they be changed? It seems such a rush, and I can't understand the reason why we're doing it at this time. And just to emphasise again the fact that library changes in other counties have taken years, and they've slowly developed and they've evolved, and we need local solutions, as has already been acknowledged, bespoke packages for each of our libraries. And I'm really worried that because we only have a matter of weeks and we can't scrutinise what's coming, that there is going to be a sort of a boilerplate thing applied, which is exactly what people have been really concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I mean, I'm sure that officers and Cabinet members are getting this part of the message loud and clear. I mean, I think but as our monitoring officer said, I mean, it seems that unfortunately this this horse has bolted, and this is, you know, thin gruel it may be, but this is all we have to eat. So, Chief Exec.
Just to point out in response to that question, I think it's important to note in 2.7 of this report that the council did, in the budget setting, agree to an additional £1 million for the year ahead to facilitate transformation and support to libraries. So, you know, that's for the financial year ahead. So that is money that, based on some of the work coming through, has to be considered and spent in the year ahead. So, you know, in balancing out the positives and listening, that has been set aside as part of this process. And so there has to be a plan around about that to make sure that we can, responding to Councillor Wilson's point, the bit about taking this forward over a long period of time, regardless of the LGR proposal, there is money available to do work in the year ahead. So I think, you know, recommendations around about that are really important. They also do think that it is trailed in 2.3, 4, 6 and 7, the context that this process is operating within, and the fact that, you know, the EU committee are charged here today to take the emerging themes that are quite clear in terms of feedback from the public and make recommendations linked to those. So I think it would be helpful if committee were to look at those emerging themes. It is a challenging matter to resolve, but there are positives in there, and there is an opportunity to get back to Cabinet with your ideas on that, because I do think everybody in the room has said the same things, but it's really for this committee to consider that and make recommendations.
Which was our intention, but thank you for that. Yes, yes. No, we will move
that out. We've got a strong voice in here that is to be celebrated. There is additional funds available that should be celebrated, and you've got an opportunity in that place as a committee.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you very much. I don't sit on the committee, so I can't make any recommendations, but I do feel that it's totally unacceptable to have this report and then go straight to Cabinet because of the lack of detail. And I do think the committee has expressed that very well, but should try and insist on seeing the specific recommendations. There's no reason why there can't be a further scrutiny committee before that Cabinet. There's no reason why that Cabinet can't be pushed back. This is a really key issue across our whole county, and to me it's inconceivable that Devon County Council can redesign its library service between now and LGR, and I think the council needs to recognise that the hours that would be involved in redesigning an effective library service would run into hundreds, thousands of hours to do it properly, and I just cannot see how the council can do that. So whilst I'm really pleased that there's additional funds there, I think that should be used for upgrade and for transformation and not cutting the statutory hours. And I think that unfortunately there's a whole raft of issues which we've heard about from the consultation, and I don't believe that that in itself is a sound basis to make cuts to statutory hours. So I would really urge the council to think about how long it's going to take, the pressure that the council is already under in terms of LGR and the potential for disaggregation, particularly because of the government's decisions elsewhere in the country. It's just not feasible to redesign the library services. We should not be cutting the hours at this particular time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Richardson, we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Chair. I think what Councillor Bailey just said there is right on the point. Now, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I do wonder if perhaps we could start building a recommendation actually that the May Cabinet meeting is too early for this to be given justice, and actually that we propose that it is postponed. I think we've got two things here. Firstly, what Councillor Bailey said, but also, is 2 weeks going to be enough to give the rest of the analysis of the data justice? We've heard concerns, and obviously we've been given a paper that's half-baked. So that would be my, obviously, you know, to give the justice to the rest of the time we have in this meeting, but I would propose that at the relevant point if that's acceptable.
Thank you. Max is working up a list of possible recommendations for our consideration later on. Councillor Thomas.
Chairman, thank you. I wasn't going to speak, but I just want to make a point to the committee that, notwithstanding happiness or unhappiness around the paucity of information and at the risk of getting punched by the member next to me, I've come here today. Councillor Bickley is online. Councillor Arnott is online. You've got Councillor Bukowski and you've got Councillor Cottle-Hunkin. You've got half the cabinet in the room, virtually or otherwise. And I'm here to hear what the committee think about the consultation and to hear what the committee want. We will then go to cabinet and make a decision. I would be disappointed to think that this committee would think the cabinet does not listen to scrutiny. And by way of definition, after the budget meeting of full council, we spent an hour and 55 minutes going through 24 proposals that had come from full council. And I think, Maria, 85% or more were taken and adopted. So I think the cabinet has proved that we're not against the scrutiny committee here. We would like, I'm personally here this morning. I'm not a member of the committee, but I'm here to hear from the committee. And if the committee make recommendations on what they want, they will certainly be heavily in my mind at cabinet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. And I suppose to an extent, this cuts both ways, given that the report is so thin in detail that allows this committee to make its recommendations from a blank page.
Chairman, can I come back? Only to say that I spent 4 years in opposition in this council and I was always aware of my own mind of what I wanted. Whether the cabinet wanted to listen to me or not is another matter, but I was always quite capable of proposing what I thought. So if, for example, I thought that something shouldn't happen, I was always happy to say I didn't think it should happen. If I thought it should happen, I would say I thought it should happen, but I don't think, papers or otherwise, the gentlemen to my left are all perfectly capable of telling you what they want in terms of libraries. Whether the cabinet listens is ultimately up to the cabinet. Whether the cabinet can afford to listen is ultimately a matter of finance, but certainly I want to hear what the members of scrutiny think so that that can inform my decision at cabinet, and I will say no more because this isn't my meeting.
Indeed not. Although I've never known that stop you in the past. Councillor Buchowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Cabinet. Councillor James Buchowski, Cabinet Member for Finance. I just want to reiterate that the consultation responses have not been fully analysed. That it would be wrong to present them to the committee without that full analysis. But what is very clear from the consultation and very clear from members is that there is widespread opposition to the reduction of statutory hours. And that has been heard loud and clear by Cabinet. I can assure you of that. What I would draw your attention to is obviously attached to your papers is the draft vision for Devon libraries. And certainly as a cabinet member, I'd be very keen to hear the scrutiny committee's opinion on that and whether that's in the right direction. But just to reassure yourself, members of the public, the reduction in statutory hours, the opposition to that has been heard.
Thank you. I would propose, unless anybody's got any pressing reason to do otherwise, that I think we've made the point about the process, and I think I'd propose that we now turn our attention slightly to the nature and future of the library services and what that might look like. To pick up on the point about the vision part of the document, page 11 of your agenda. And et sec. So does anybody, and I think, our comments on the process have clearly been heard. So if we can move on. Councillor Mitchell, you look concerned.
Respond to my colleague from the South Hams. Greatest respect. We are here to make informed decisions. I haven't got the information and evidence fully in front of me to make an informed. I can have a view, I can have an opinion, but I thought the role of scrutiny was to make recommendations to the executive. Normally, they're based upon an executive report with recommendations. All we've got in front of us is the famous note and note. In other words, have you read the letters? Please go away. We haven't We are not in that position to make an informed decision. We might all have opinions, but I prefer them to be based upon informed evidence. I don't know the financial structure, the money's available. We've got no magic money tree. We've got to look at these things in the whole based on the evidence that's placed in front of us. And at this stage, we do not have that evidence placed in front of us to make an informed decision or informed recommendations to the executive. Hence, I think the rationale is to have a call in afterwards when the executive have had all the information, are making recommendations to council, and we can then consider them and review them, ask them to rethink them if we believe that is necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Good points well made. Although, with respect, if you don't know the money available, I mean, the budget has been set, and we know what it is. There are things that we can know. 7.125 million with the £1 million reserve, etc. So, yeah,
know the position for this year, but going forward, there's no decision.
Well, and nor will there be until the budget's for those years. Councillor Keeble, because we haven't heard from you yet, we'll come to you.
Could you just, thank you.
We're there. Thank you, Chair. Really, this is a very important debate, and I think we just need to recognise where we are in the stage of the debate, and we don't have the information to actually really go forward. We're questioning what the cabinet will receive in at their May meeting. And so it's quite clear to me, we've got cabinet members here in the room and online that are really listening to the debate. And I think the message is kind of very, very loud and clear that libraries are certainly a part of the centre of our community and have been. As a young district councillor in North Devon 35 years ago, the Ilfracombe Library was commissioned as part of a housing complex. I was chair of that committee at the time, and to continue the royal theme, it was opened by Princess Diana. So I'm disappointed there is no detail today, but I'm looking forward to this returning, and we need to bear in mind where local government reorganisation is, and how that debate, the debate that we're having, needs to be shaped or mindful of that in the future. So I'm quite content at the point that we've reached at the moment. I'm not satisfied we've got to a conclusion, far from it, but we're on that journey and we're listening.
Thank you. I'd like at this point, if possible, to bring in Kate and Alex from Libraries Unlimited, and in a bid to move it on to actually looking slightly more at the substance of this, the transformation. I'd just like to get an understanding from you of how this fits, because obviously you provide library services across a broader patch than just Devon, or as I understand it, and you already, as I understand it, provide library services in Torbay, for instance. So how this fits in with your overall approach to how the transformation, things like Open Plus, the greater use of volunteers, whether by volunteers we just mean individuals or whether we're talking about community groups as well, those sorts of things. Just a brief overview of how all this fits in with your vision of what libraries are and what they need to become.
Right, thank you. I wish I could answer all the questions that everyone's got, and I would throw loads of questions in as well if I could. I think to start with, I want to say a huge thanks for having us here, and a huge thanks to everyone here, friends groups, the public, councillors, for promoting the consultation. We are thrilled to have heard that there's over 25,000 people who took the time to fill that out and care so much about the libraries in Devon. So that's great. And I think that does buck the trend nationally. There is more interest, there is more passion down here in Devon, and we're really proud of that. And I get the impression that the consultation responses, the volume is more than expected, and the council is taking it seriously and trying to analyse and listen to them. The finances are challenging, and we want to work with everyone to make that work. Your questions around some of the specifics. We don't know what the future holds. We're waiting for decisions to be made. We're confident we can negotiate and react and have a library model that will be the best value that you can procure, that you can get for the county. In terms of Open Plus specifically, our view is that is not to replace staff. Open Plus is an additional service. And it's a great one at that, and we would love to see as many libraries as possible have it, because, for example, if you want to pop into the library late at night once your kids are in bed and there's no staff there, but that's the time you can go and borrow some more books or replace some books or pop in on a Sunday afternoon, that is a great service. But that's an additionality to staffing hours. In terms of volunteers, we already have over 700 volunteers. We have the details of those who filled out and ticked the box and filled out their email address saying they're happy for their contact details to be passed on to Libraries Unlimited. That came straight to us. So we are looking forward to working with many, many more people who would like to volunteer. I think, Thomas, you're exactly right that a lot of people say they'd be willing to volunteer, but in reality, is that going to work practically for their stage in life? It's brilliant that we have so many under 18s who volunteer as part of D&V in libraries at the moment. Don't think volunteers are just the retired folks. However, we are so grateful for all those who do give time and money. Our friends groups, I think, are volunteers and give so much in terms of fundraising, raising profile, and representing the library service locally. In terms of the papers, the vision document, we would love to know more detail, but we're encouraged by the direction it goes. We really do think each community is different, and developing local library plans in those communities is the way forward. You can't have one model for the whole county, and we're delighted to be able to work with councillors in that. And it's great that Cheryl's been able to visit so many of the libraries and speak to many of the communities. It's great that we have so many friends groups who are thriving and have strong opinions. That's all very positive, isn't it? What we really want to know is what is the plan? And at the moment, we are operating under temporary reduced hours in some libraries. We're operating with ad hoc closures, and that is unfair, I think, on the customers, the public, because they don't know if the library hours will be as they were the week before, if someone's gone on leave, and the recruitment freeze and processes that we have means that it won't be open. It's also, I think, unfair on our staff who don't know, is there going to be a big restructure or a small restructure? Will they have a job? What does the future look like? And this uncertainty has been going on for a long time, obviously, since the consultation started. And yes, I'd encourage people to take time to consider the results, but also I'd say, please, let's make some decisions quickly. We don't want to continue this sort of ad hoc closures and temporary hours. We want to have clarity. And I'm encouraged that money was set aside at the full council meeting when the budget was set. So yeah, we're looking forward as well to those results. I'm not sure that answered your question, but
I'll ask you a couple of things about the bits of my question that it didn't answer, or new questions that it's brought up. So you touched on temporary reduced hours and ad hoc closures. That's a result of financial constraints, recruiting difficulties, just on a whim. I mean, so what's causing those? What's causing those?
Financial constraints.
So you could get the staff, but or you've got the staff and you're just not asking them to turn up at present, or
so we are not replacing staff when they leave.
Thank you. And in terms of from a delivery perspective, I mean, logic seems to suggest that the way to do these things is to do the transformation first and then sort of backfill with volunteers. Or so rather than, you know, is to kind of get the new structure up and running before any reduction in paid hours, or how do you see? I mean, is that an easy thing to deliver? Is that change to a more hybrid model where you maybe, you know, maybe it's the local history group kind of occupying the library for an afternoon as a trusted partner a week or something? Because I was lucky enough to tour a number of the South Hams libraries with Councillor Cotterill-Hunkin, and I sensed a slight sort of rolling of eyes amongst the staff of these things. I mean, are we all on board with the possibility of voluntary groups or individuals kind of becoming more involved in the running of our libraries?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is, what does that actually mean? So we have lots of volunteers. Volunteers are not the only answer. We believe you've got to have paid staff in libraries. Volunteers need managing. In Ottery, I think there's a volunteer who manages the volunteers, and that's their job. They don't actually serve the public. We have the same up in Braunton, where the French group opened the library on an additional day, and they have some volunteers who manage the rotas, and that's their volunteering role. And then those volunteers need supervision by our staff. So are volunteers the answer? Absolutely, they're part of the answer, but they're not the sole answer. How long will it take to increase the role of volunteers in libraries? Well, that depends on what role they need to play. But we would expect there would be transition, transformation, change for the rest of 2026 at least. You know, whatever decisions are made, there needs to be a long period of change. You know, consulting with staff. Recruiting and inducting volunteers, you know, figuring out the rotas and when will volunteers be. So things won't change immediately. There will be a long period of change.
Councillor Julian.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, that, you know, if somebody leaves that are employed and you're not going to replace them, and you can't get volunteers for that particular library, are we then in the back door of closing the library because we don't have the staff? Because it seems to me that, you know, if they're cutting back or just letting them retire or whatever they want to do, they're not going to replace. It sounds like you're cutting the libraries down, and you know, we've got to scrutinise this, and we need to have this on board, because otherwise, why we can't scrutinise something they haven't even made a decision on. And once they've made a decision, Chair, it's too late. We can't even decide that it's wrong.
Yeah, and we have. I think we've heard that. If we keep saying that, then we will be here all day. But on the point of, I mean, you don't let the recruitment freeze lead to full closure. I hope. No,
absolutely. And there was a recruitment freeze. We've eased it slightly. We do move staff around so that one library that's had lots of people leave and another hasn't nearby, we can have staff move. We are recruiting to some posts on fixed term contracts. We desperately need a longer term decision, and we thoroughly agree that longer term decision is until May 2028.
Thank you. I'll come to you, Councillor Kitchen, but I will come first to Mr. Kitchen.
Thank you. It was just a point of clarity, really. I think, as Councillor Julian said, some of these, I think, thinking ahead about the role of additional volunteers is still subject to a decision by Cabinet. So, you know, one of the proposals is about the use of volunteers, as with some of the other proposals, and that is a decision for Cabinet to make in the future. So I think I'm just conscious that, you know, a discussion about financial challenges and limitations around opening hours reflects the current financial position as with the previous financial year and our kind of previous contract. So again, we need to kind of project ahead post the Cabinet decision and separate the kind of operational challenges and delivery of whatever Cabinet will decide from the current day-to-day delivery that Alex is describing.
Thank you. And I mean, I think we're all aware that stuff, you know, everything is caveated by no decisions have yet been made, and this all depends on Cabinet. But I don't think that should stop it. I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Cottle-Hunkin. I'll just come to.
Thank you for your contributions. Very helpful to hear someone who's right at the coalface tell us how it is. I've got two questions for you. One, you've made it very clear that open access can augment the services and that it's not linked in with the issue of paid staff. That's a separate issue to be dealt with. So my first question is within the year coming, do you think the £1 million that is sort of obviously yet to be decided on how that is spent, but could that be a useful contribution to implementing open access throughout the 50 libraries in Devon? That's my first question, because we're looking at augmenting services as well as the inherited picture that we had, which was the running down of services. So let's look at some positive. So that's the transition fund. Another thing is, within the year that we have, because we're sort of, you know, the financial year is already a month underway, do you feel that spend can be achieved that is of that level of ambition that the new administration has, you know, to achieve that £1 million spend? That is for transition, not just for old revenue challenges. We've obviously frozen the revenue budget, but there's a transition fund. Can you achieve that transition spend with the help of the council within the financial year? And do we need to make this a multi-year transition, which is the obvious follow-on question? Thank you.
Great questions. Not sure I've got all the answers. Can we spend £1 million in a year? Yes, we can. Would it be well spent? Is it better to spread it over longer? It all depends on what that £1 million can be spent on, and that's what we're wanting to understand along yourselves. Would it be well spent on Open Plus as an addition to staffed hours? I think so, yes. But you know, we have been really fortunate working with Devon County Council that Devon County Council submitted an application to the Arts Council, was successful, and there is funding for at least 11, if not a few more Open Plus sites. I think we've also had funding from some other sources. We're putting in some of our reserves to that. So, you know, even if there's a huge amount more money, there will be Open Plus installed in a number of libraries in the coming year. Could we install more? Yes, we can. That was one question. What was the second question?
Sort of last part was, does this need to be a multi-year settlement for a transition to work?
Depends what that £1 million is for, but yes and no, it can be done in a year. And I think once decisions are made, let's them implement those and respond quickly. You know, make the changes and crack on. So, I mean, if it's spread over a couple of years, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If that delays changes that are inevitable or coming, then that wouldn't be great. Don't feel I answered that.
No, thank you. I think that Councillor Cottle-Hunkin.
It was just responding back to Councillor Julian about after Cabinet decision we made, and there's nothing that you can do, but there's the call in to scrutiny. So there's that ability, if you don't like the decision that's made, then you bring it to scrutiny and you'd have all the detail there and then send back your recommendations following that.
Thank you. Councillor Kearney.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is very much a money versus need, where our libraries are not only places where we lend books, but they're also community hubs. And we do know that we want to keep them. This could possibly be an opportunity of possibly looking at running libraries in a different way so that they are self-fulfilling prophecies, that they are successful. And we can go forward and think, we have done this here, but the model that we have just now is not sustainable because the money that has to go in is not coming to the libraries. So they do have to change, as all things have to change, but we actually here have an opportunity to change it in the betterment for all of the people in Devon, that we can keep the libraries, but they might not be exactly the same as they are just now. And the future way that we do them, for all we know, might even be a better way of running them or a better way of looking after our local communities. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's not it from me. It is so the vision paper is great. I mean, you know, there's nobody disputes that the goals. I suspect, I hope nobody disputes the goals that it sets out. I suppose it's how that this is where I think we have a problem as a committee is how that articulates with how that's going, you know, how that is to be delivered. And I think that's I'm struggling with that at the moment. But just keeping on, so things like, and I know that libraries, you know, other things than books, and I don't think it's the coalface. I think it's the typeface in libraries that people work at. But I'm concerned that there are, and from our trip around the libraries, I'm concerned that there are certain hard to reach groups. Late teens, for instance, were mentioned as a, and you'll forgive my ignorance, but it seems that reaching out to those people is quite a specialist role. Do you have any sort of peripatetic facilitators so someone who goes around from library to library running a teens group or a mum's book club, or because librarians are great, but they're not necessarily specialists in everything. So is that something that you do already? Is that something that...
Thank you, Chair. So we do have, as you say, 50 libraries and a huge amount of knowledge and experience amongst our library teams. People come into library land and don't seem to go. So we have a huge amount of experience there. And we have our 3 centres where we have kind of teams who have kind of even more experience kind of in them. So in terms of teams, we do have a number of teen book clubs, all sorts of teen activity. We're also very successful in getting funding to do activities with all sorts of groups. So for example, in North Devon, we've got an opportunity there around it's teens, it's young people, bring things together with a cultural impetus there. So all sorts of opportunities like that we're able to take advantage of all the time because we do have that expertise. We don't tend to have peripatetic roles that go around unless those are funded externally by specific things, but we do all those activities and we work very closely in partnership with all sorts of different groups and organisations. So we lean on the experience of others and bring our experience to those as well. So in a whole kind of raft of different things. Just to say, you know, we got over £1 million worth of grant funding in the last financial year, which is an amazing target to have. So this is the additionality that Libraries Unlimited as the charity brings to Devon's libraries, and I don't think that should be, you know, overlooked. Personally, I come from a local authority run library background. I worked in local authority run libraries for 20 plus years before I moved here, and it's a very different kettle of fish. So that charity benefit is really noticeable when you move into this area, and that's a great strength for Devon County Council to have on board.
Sorry, just to I'm slow of understanding on this one. So the charity benefit's a great thing to have because it gives us access to funding streams that we wouldn't otherwise have. Okay,
absolutely, yes.
Councillor Mitchell.
Hopefully for a point of clarity, we have a commissioned service. I don't know what the legal status is, possibly this will be explained to us, where it appears that we as a county lay down the strategy, you then deliver our strategy. To what extent do you have an input or control of that strategy? Because unless we provide the budget and support for you to deliver that strategy, you cannot deliver that strategy. Whereas I've been used to other commission services where you hand the service over to the commissioners, they run it and are accountable to the local authority. It seems I've can you give us a clear understanding of the balance between the Commission and your responsibilities and your input into actually what is delivered?
I think it would be slightly unfair to ask that initially of Libraries Unlimited, but I think if we could ask Mr. Kitchen to answer it, for instance, I think that would be.
So the council obviously commissions Libraries Unlimited through a clear specification and holds regular performance meetings to that specification. So we determine what the library service is required to provide on behalf of the council. But you've also heard that Libraries Unlimited as a separate entity bring a whole lot of additionality to the party. So, for example, its arrangements with the Arts Council provide a range of cultural events which the county council doesn't provide. So that's an added value using the resource that is libraries across Devon. In terms of the vision and the strategy, again, it is the county council to set that vision for its 50 libraries. Again, you know, it will be informed by the expertise that Libraries Unlimited bring through friends groups over time, those sorts of things. But you know, this is about the county council's commissioned service for which is provided by Libraries Unlimited.
Just come back for a point of clarification that, if I could, sorry, Chair, to Mr. Kitchen. In effect, staffing levels effectively are largely set by us. Averages are largely set by us for libraries, and we dictate the budget contribution in order to deliver that. So if they are unable to deliver what we want, it could well be because we have a shortage on the budget side. We don't provide sufficient funding for them to deliver what we want. So how do you reconcile that to ensure that they're getting the correct budget to ensure they're delivering what we require?
Budget is the budget. The budget is the budget. So in terms of how the service is delivered, you know, there is a degree of negotiation to that. So how you know, libraries are staffed and the nature of that staffing and who lives where, obviously that's delegated to Libraries Unlimited. But you're right. So Alex has described a challenging financial situation which has got an impact on staff. So ultimately, you know, if the council budget isn't, for example, meeting inflation, then clearly that will put a pressure on staffing decisions made by Libraries Unlimited. Is that clear? Is that okay? Thanks, Councillor Mitchell.
So, members, it's my intention.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just clarify? I think the member asked for a response from the Libraries Unlimited service lead as well. Would it be possible to hear that?
Yes, I don't want to avoid kind of getting two different answers to the same question, because I think that puts I mean, if libraries, if Alex or Kate are happy to answer this, then I'm happy to let it be asked. But I was.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same answer as Simon said. I mean, I can add to it. Devon County Council have their library strategy. They commission us, we deliver it. And because it's a statutory service with statutory hours, the opening hours are in there. Libraries Unlimited, we have a bigger strategy because we deliver other services, but we also have aspirations to bring in more external funding. And we're delighted, you know, got £1.5 million from the lottery for the next 5 years. That's fantastic. So we want to bring so much more to what you commission us to do. So our strategy is it fair to say a little bit bigger, you know, broader?
So to some extent, you are constrained by the agreement we enter within you. The room for manoeuvre for you is extremely limited.
We're always constrained by how much funding we have. If you gave a lot more, we'd do a lot more. If you gave us less, we'd do less. We'd still, yeah, bring in more money from outside, but.
Thank you. Okay, in which case, at this point, I'm going to suggest that we shortly take a short break, and maybe people can put their thinking caps on to see if there are any cogent recommendations that we think we can come forward with. But before we do, I just want to touch on something that hasn't been, I don't think, addressed but that our public participants raised in various ways at the beginning of the meeting, which is this issue of the banding of libraries. And I know that we heard that in Ottery they thought it was a misbanding, and I'm aware of that being the case elsewhere. Can you just address that, because yeah.
Thank you. Just to remind people here that the part of the proposal was around how libraries are structured around the county, around kind of area bases, but also really it feels like since forever there's been a banding structure that has changed very little over the course of the last 10 to 15 years. And I think part of the process of the plan for reorganisation would be to review those bandings. I think that, you know, we've listened to how people have reacted to that. We've listened to not just the individuals who put forward in terms of the consultation, but also from groups, from parish councils and elsewhere in terms of a kind of misunderstanding around the bandings and what the purpose of them are. And I think we're in the last throes of reviewing the banding structure in order to make sure that that much simpler. And hopefully when we get to the point where we put recommendations to cabinet, is that, you know, we will put a different sort of solution together that hopefully provides a much more local solution.
Thank you. And just for, again, because the consultation was carried out to an extent on the basis of that banding. I mean, if we were, say, to change or abandon the banding system, does the consultation remain valid?
The consultation is always valid because it's a way in which, you know, we can hear from people and individuals and organisations about what they think about a proposal. So our job and the job of my team really is to take those into account and put recommendations together for cabinet that reflect those comments and reflect those sorts of things that people have said in terms of you know, either what they've understood, what they've not understood, how they feel about certain bits of the proposal and so on.
Mr. Kitchen.
Yeah, thank you. Just a point of clarity. So the consultation was based around the library needs assessment, for which, you know, banding was a part of that, and it was fantastic to hear the kind of Ottery's performance, if you like, in terms of that banding, and clearly aspirations of kind of working at a level of other libraries. But of course, the consultation is informed by the needs of that community. So that needs assessment not only drives, you know, is driven by the library performance itself, but actually the needs of the community. And that, you know, that's very much behind the consultation and the data that talks about the demography of those communities. So yeah, just a point of clarity.
Councillor Bailey. And
I'd just like to pick up on one point about the needs assessment. The issue with the needs assessment is it doesn't look at individual communities. It kind of spreads it out across districts, so you can't see anything in terms of individual communities. So I would just challenge you that actually identifies the needs of assessment, and that's the whole issue, that none of this has been done on a kind of community ultra local level, which is what needs to happen.
You looked like you wanted to respond and then thought better of it.
I mean, the needs assessment's a public document, and, you know, please kind of review it for yourself in terms of what it talks about, the needs of particular demographic groups and particular communities. But I hear the feedback. Thank you.
Chief Exec.
Again, just for clarification, but I think it's important to be positive and constructive. You know, we've heard from communities today about how much they income generate and the work that they do in the libraries. We've heard that firsthand. I do have on screen that our investment in our libraries across Devon is very positive and better when we benchmark on spend per resident in terms of what county does. Nationally, we've heard from Libraries Unlimited of the monies that they are accessing through lottery funding and innovation projects. So I think it's just important to the public to hear that collectively we should be positive that whether it's our communities, whether it's our partnerships, whether it's our own investment, we are investing really positively together in this service in Devon, better than many other places in the country. And I think it's just important to put that marker down, along with recognising that in all this discussion this year, our council did find additional funding and a budget gap of the region of £30 million to invest more money in libraries. So I just think it's important to set that context that we are all working together to make that difference.
Thank you. At which point, if we can take a 10-minute break till 12:15, as I say, let's put our thinking caps on and see if there are any recommendations that we can come up with. Thank you. If people could resume their seats, please, and then we'll get going again. Yeah.
Being a councillor work.
Okay, if we could come back to order, please. Are you staying with us, Councillor? Wonderful. More than welcome. So we're has that brief break allowed anybody to be struck by inspiration as to any recommendations that they think we should consider? We have wording for your first one, Councillor Richardson. Are you coming up with a second?
Sorry, could you please remind me of the first recommendation?
We can, yeah, we'll put that up on the screen. So that reflects some of the comments earlier on. I mean, I think we've heard that there's a tension inherent in this, in that Andy was saying that you know, the sooner we can crack on and do things, the better. But anyway, that is there, and we can consider that in a moment. I'd like to look at the part of our work that is about to look at the vision thing, as it's called. So in terms of the non-traditional, oh, sorry, Councillor Richardson.
Sorry, yeah, it's on your the way you're moving the conversation towards the vision, but I'd also like to bring forward a recommendation that this committee is in opposition to a net loss of statutory service hours, so no net loss of statutory service hours, essentially.
So in terms of a recommendation, we recommend that the Cabinet does not reduce statutory service hours. Okay, well, we can have that. This is a working list, and these are not final things. Councillor Ketchin.
The Cabinet consider a post that would allow specific management of the transition fund such that it is transition. I get the sense that there are many people in front of us today who, well, I can talk to that in a minute, but that would be the recommendation, that the transition fund specifically has someone either responsible, whether it's a new post or whether it's within an existing post, but someone specifically tasked with managing the transition fund such that it's got someone accountable for it and someone driving this, rather than it just becomes a fund that's maybe seen as revenue or something else.
Manages the transition fund or manages the transition?
Well, manages the transition fund specifically because that is the tool that is the driver of transition. Otherwise, it's just hot air.
Okay. Councillor Mitchell.
Just in relation to recommendation 1, I'm wondering whether we need to add in there that they're concerned about the seeing the consultation responses. I would have thought, in the light of the timescale that's been suggested, we will want to add in there the recommendations being made to the executive. So it is a pre-decision discussion on the recommendations going to the executive, because at that stage we should know what the recommendations are, and I'm sure at that stage the Cabinet would welcome our views on what they're actually being recommended to decide, rather than the generality of what is in the report.
Thank you. Okay, I think I've. We'll try and tinker with the wording on that. Is there any chance that my desperate pleas to return to the vision thing will find fertile ground? Councillor Reid.
Yeah, just agreeing with what Councillor Mitchell said. We really want to see the recommendations ideally before they go to cabinet. So yeah, on that first one, I suppose in the event that that doesn't happen, the report asks us in paragraph 10.1 to make recommendations to cabinet around how the consultation findings are considered, which, as we've alluded to, is difficult when they haven't even finished analysing them yet. So I don't know, in terms of that, the best we can do is just to emphasise that we want them to fully consider the consultation findings and have high regard for what the public are asking us to do. It's a bit general, a bit vague, but I think in the absence of knowing exactly what the public have said, we just want to put that high up their agenda, I suppose.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to be strict now. What do people, in terms of, are there things that we would like to see happening in libraries that don't, or is there a shift in emphasis that we would like to see? If we took, for instance, the what do they call the family hub things? I don't think they're currently provided in every library where it would be possible to provide them. Is that something? I mean, how is there? I appreciate it's difficult because it is all a bit motherhood and apple pie, the vision, and its generalities, and like you, I share your disappointment that I was hoping that we'd have some, if only in draft form, we'd have some more specific proposals before us, but we don't. So, Councillor Ketchum.
To speak to your specific point, that's what recommendation 3 is. It's to have not necessarily a named accountable officer, because that suggests someone within the organisation that's already in post with other responsibilities to fulfil. But there are people I've been made aware of, there are people that nationally that have expertise in this kind of thing, and it may be to manage a transition, whether it's for family hubs, working with other organisations, but really to future-proof, take this moment in time and future-proof the libraries, which is what I've essentially heard as the overarching thing today. Having someone in post to do specifically that, with the time and freedom to do specifically that, will be a powerful thing. And so I think, you know, whether it's family hubs or other wider stakeholders, we're looking to transform libraries. So this idea of the fund being managed by an accountable officer or an expert in the field that's external is something I'd welcome. So I think that encompasses what you're trying to say, Simon. You may agree or disagree.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Saying that I think we would welcome the vision for Devon libraries as put in the report, as outlined in the report. I would think also we would emphasise the need for local decision making about the direction of each local library, and for those communities to be involved very clearly in the way their local library can fulfil the position of a community hub.
Thank you, and I think that is an important thing, because especially if we're looking to ramp up the partnership with volunteers, that can only ever really happen from a bottom up direction. I'm looking around.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back on the recommendations point on number 1. So a report will be going to Cabinet. I think that'll be published on the 12th of May. So when your pre-decision at the moment, which is why you haven't got recommendations in front of you today. So I just wanted to be clear about the process of how this is working. So because you are pre-decision, it is an executive function. The Cabinet report will be due to published on the 12th of May, which will have recommendations in there. I think the aim was that Scrutiny's considerations could possibly work into those recommendations. So hence why you haven't got a report in front of you for Cabinet today, because that's not due until the 20th of May. So I just wanted to be really clear on the process and what will happen at what stage. And I think you've already outlined, if you're not content, there is a route to go with that. But just being really clear on the process and why you haven't got recommendations in a cabinet report today to look at, because you are pre-decision.
Yes, I mean, there is. I take your point. You're always, anything that happens before a decision is pre-decision, but there are different stages. I mean, and I think the intention in setting up this committee was that we would be in between there being at least a draft version of the recommendations to cabinet and the cabinet decision. I mean, that was the goal, and I think the general feeling of this committee is that, perhaps this is a lesson for the future, is that would have been the most useful point and would have still been pre-decision, but would have had more meat to work with. In terms of, I'm going to keep on banging on about it. In terms of the vision statement, the mood board, are there matters of emphasis within it that we think we? Yes, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose maybe just drawing more emphasis on, and I suppose this will come out from when the full analysis of the consultation has been completed, but understanding the barriers existing to each different service group, and then moving towards looking at a opening hours regime that reflects their, trying to think the way to put this, but reflects their needs best so they can access the service.
I think that's a very good recommendation. I think I was somewhat taken aback. I can't remember who said it about the issue of neurodiverse people sort of finding busy libraries difficult to handle, because in my experience they can also offer a haven from the surrounding busy town for people with neurodivergent people to seek sanctuary in a library, because they are places of calm. Whilst I'm glad that the main job of librarians is no longer to say shush, and that they can be lively and noisy places, but there is also so having calm spaces in them, I think is something that sort of some aspect of that would be good to protect. So and I think, and promote. So if you need a timeout, and all of us do, wherever we are, sometimes the library is a good place. Yeah, Councillor Mitchell.
In point 5, I did make the opening comment that we as a committee support the vision in the document, and I think this is something you, Chair, would try to emphasise it. And I think in a positive way we share the overarching vision. The matter is whether in each locality it can be delivered, and it will be delivered in different ways, in different aspects, noting the needs of that community. That was why I put it, but I think we need to put in that we do support the vision as outlined in the document.
Thank you, and that is picks up on the Chief Executive's plea for positivity, I think, so that's always good. Councillor Cottle-Hunkin, is there anything where you would, well, I mean, you've been here, and you've listened and you can see the recommendations as they stand. Is there anything where you feel that you would welcome the committee's guidance when it comes to sort of emphasis and questions of degree to particular items within the vision statement?
I think there's some really good recommendations that have been put forward. Just in terms of, I know it's all on a local level, but any services or organisations that you think would really be good to have in our libraries that aren't already in there. So I know that we've already got certain services which are brilliant, the bounce and rhyme, the baby weighing, but are there more, like the job centres? I know that's mentioned in the vision, but are there more services that you think would be best placed in a library? Because we know that voluntary groups are struggling, they've got bills to pay with different premises. Is there the opportunity that we could say to them, have you thought about using the library? It would be more cost effective for them and it would benefit our local community, because we know that libraries are a non-judgmental, welcoming, safe space for people. They can step into the library and then get directed to the different support services that they require. So just looking to you for any suggestions for the vision to add to that, really. So we're hoping to develop the vision into something a bit more meaty to go to Cabinet.
I'll come to you in a moment. Well, no, you go first, Councillor Mitchell.
Just to add, I attended a meeting last night celebrating the 80 years of Citizens Advice in Exeter. And that, to me, is one key service that might want space within local libraries to provide that service to those often most in need in our communities, and feel that safe sanctuary in a library where they can talk to a professional or qualified person and get the support they need. And I think that would be both supportive of CAA and assist people in our community.
I think in terms of health as well, people don't really want to sort of go into a clinic or necessarily, whereas if you're just going into a library, no one knows why you're there. You're just going into the library. Hopefully they'll take out a book or be more encouraged to take out a book at the same time. But it's that's what's really coming across from all of my visits. It's that safe space for people to enter, and then they can be directed to different support. It might just be the social aspect, the knit and natter, the little groups, the reading groups that go on, but there's more potential, I feel, where we can work with other services on top of what is already happening, and that will make them more resilient into the future. We've talked about LGR, but we can start things going now. We've got this £1 million transformation fund available to start looking at what else is possible, working together, working with Libraries Unlimited, working with our town and parish councils, and working with councillors. I know there's a lot of negativity today, but I'm really positive about it, because I think we don't want to remain as it is. Yes, I understand the importance of paid librarians and we need to get the balance right, but we've got volunteers that we can actually open the libraries longer. We've already got libraries that have only been open for 6 hours a week for the past 10 years. Surely there's ways that we can make that better. I know that there is, and people have come forward through the consultation. There is a lot, and the friends groups are doing an amazing job, but this has really infused more friends groups to get set up. They've realised that they can draw in even more money. So I'm really positive. I think there's a lot of potential, and I'd like to get more thoughts to add to the vision that will go to Cabinet.
I see some more thoughts forming on my right, but I just, Mr. Brown, rather than you've been sitting here like cheese at fourpence, as my gran used to say. I mean, we've heard already that libraries are a vector of delivery of some public health things, heart rate monitoring, baby weighing, etc. Is that something that, from a public health point of view, you think we should ramp up and find more ways of delivering other? And obviously there are leaflets, plenty in every library of that. But can our public health teams make more use of libraries as a hub and a vector for delivering their services?
I guess the short answer would be yes. I think a couple of just thoughts for me. One is, increasingly we're talking about community hubs and kind of reframing the library. I think my observation is you talk about a library and people immediately go to there's books on shelves which people get, and what you hear today and what we've heard from residents and what you see in the vision is it's so much more than a library. It's a community hub. If you think about the opportunities we nationally, so the NHS is a good example, really clear direction of travel to a place. So looking at community health hubs, that doesn't necessarily mean all based in a community hospital, in a GP surgery. It's based in what makes sense in that community. And there are examples, as you say in here, where best start in life, we have, blood pressure monitors in libraries. So how do we utilize them as a community asset? Because for some people, that's the best place, or sometimes the only place they go to engage. So I think you're absolutely right, Chair. How do we reimagine and revision how we engage with the communities around a whole range of health? Yes, on the one hand, that could be simply information giving or providing information, but also it could be some interventions as well. Clearly, there are some things which are suited to do in a library. Taking a blood pressure monitor might be one of the things. Other things like maybe taking vaccinations might be better suited in a more a different location. So huge opportunities. Direction of travel with central government is really, really clear. Things happen at place, things happen in the communities. And I think some of our libraries will be well placed to be one of those community assets, to see more than just giving out books, and to see themselves as community hubs for health and well-being. Absolutely.
I don't know which order, so I'm coming from the back of the room. So Councillor Richardson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, echo what Councillor Cottle-Hunkin and what Steve Brown said there. I'd also like to raise another sort of, group or organisation thinking about community hubs and bringing things in libraries. On many rural towns, high streets, we've lost banks and post offices, for example. And I know with alarm recent news about a certain shop which houses post offices in many towns, which is entering financial trouble. So I do wonder if we could also look at things like banks and post offices, which are particularly important for the older population, who still rely on, seeing someone for banking issues, and the post office can handle some of that. So I wonder if we can look at those two aspects and consider bringing them into libraries as well.
Thank you. I thought for a moment you were talking about the demise of Claire's accessories, which also has me worried. Councillor Ketchin.
It's good to hear that you value accessories. It's all about the accessories, Simon. So good, we're on the same page there. We shouldn't be tempted to micromanage this. I'm hearing about blood pressure monitoring. I'm hearing about baby checks. And I think what we need to do is understand that there is expertise out there in managing change. Change management is a specific skill set. It's something we engaged with in the adult services. We've got a group doing a big contract to manage how we deliver adult services and look at different ways of doing that. They're experts in the field. I don't know that we need to do something quite as revenue intensive as that for this, but I think we do need to recognise that change management is a particular skill set, that there is expertise out with the people in the room that we shouldn't be micromanaging. But I think this is, if it's a vision that's about really moving forward, we absolutely need to grasp the nettle now, and the transition fund in particular, to me, has really excited me, because notwithstanding the technology that's available and the volunteers that have come forward, which are both fantastic opportunities, there's also an issue about moving things forward, and that is why I would like to emphasize the idea of bringing in external expertise. There are 50 libraries. So not just talking about a couple of libraries to tinker around. There are 50 libraries. It's going to take a lot of time and specifically granularity, because we're talking about local solutions for each library. So a lot of detail, and sort of doing this in a slightly add-on way to what is already roles that exist does not fill me full with any hope. I think we've got to accept either we do a transition holistically with people who are good at it and who've got the capacity to do it, or we say we're just tinkering around the edges, because I want it to be the former, and I get the impression everyone else does too.
Thank you. Mr. Kitchen.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that really. I think in terms of the the vision, I think we should try and keep that as high level as possible. I think there are some key aspirations that Councillor Cottle-Hunkin has outlined. I think if we're too prescriptive, then we are in danger of not empowering some of those communities to bring that kind of real kind of local level. And equally, we're not empowering our commission provider to to deliver all of those things that we're aspiring to deliver through the vision. So I think there's something to reflect on perhaps for the committee in terms of pending decisions and pending the kind of sign off of the vision, for it to consider how those things are delivered in the future. And I think inevitably there will be an implementation plan, a transformation plan, and I think for this committee to kind of oversee that over the next period of time, I think that would add huge value in terms of that bridge between where we are now to the delivery of the vision and some of those outcomes.
Thank you. We're almost in danger of agreement breaking out. So Councillor Keeble, I look to you to make sure that doesn't happen.
Provided the technology works, we are in danger of moving to an agreement. And welcome. This debate has shifted gear, several gears up, and it is a much better debate than I think we were having earlier on this morning. And out of any business analysis, when you look at threat, you get opportunity, and we're talking about a lot of opportunity here. Thank you, Councillor Cheryl Cottle-Hunkin, for changing the gear. Thank you, Steve Brown, for embracing that health is there potentially on the agenda. And let's keep this at a really high level. During the break, I was talking with Alex Kitto about bringing health, or how some of the health initiatives in Devon are so innovative that they are worthy of replication elsewhere. We've got a superb 50 library network. Let's use it.
Thank you. I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Jeffries, but given that Councillor Eade wishes to speak and is a member of this committee, I'll give him preference, if that's all right.
Thanks, Chair. I just think we need something along the lines of keeping in mind the upcoming LGR and keeping changes realistic and deliverable in the short term, focusing on improvements that make best use of that transition fund that we've got available. I'm focusing specifically on what is called for in the consultation, rather than making big sweeping changes that could take years to implement.
Thank you. Yes, I mean it's this is obviously going to be a consideration that plagues our work, already has plagued our work and will continue to do so. But I mean, I don't think anybody's unaware of the need to be mindful of LGR when making any decision or as council. But yeah, it's always worth reminding ourselves of it. Nonetheless, Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to say, in terms of children and young people, the opportunities that could be there in the future for extended. We've talked about some libraries only being open 6 hours a day for the last 10 years, but that piece where there's lots of stuff happening in the day, maybe an extension into the evening. I've got, and it was brought up earlier, there's a lot of voluntary organisations out there who are struggling at the moment, both with volunteers and with their finances. And only this week I've been asked about what spaces are available to help people with their aspirations and vision to offer a wider youth service locally, and if that was something that was built into it, so it's almost like a menu of things you could do, and making sure that was open as an opportunity for what the libraries could become in the future. That'd be really useful, and I know it'd have a big impact on the availability of somewhere for children and young people to go in the evening, perhaps as a formal arrangement with a youth club that already exists, or one that wants to exist, and then also brings young people, perhaps of an age who don't interact with the library as much as, say, primary school children, back into that space as well, which can only be a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if it's something that needs to be established in policy, but I think one of the themes that I've picked up today, and I've touched on it already, but I mean, we've talked about volunteers, but there is also, you know, the broader, the voluntary sector, as it were, and volunteer and community organisations, and their role as partners in libraries. I can't remember who, somebody's used the dread term using volunteers. I'm sure that's not what we do. We work in partnership with them. And I think there's loads of scope. I mean, in terms of emphasis, this might be me just riding my own individual hobby horse, but I think an emphasis on libraries is, there's a lot of this that we've been talking about, which has been functional, which is understandable, you know, the blood pressure monitoring, public health vector and stuff. But I mean, for me, one of the things that I would hate to lose in libraries is their cultural significance, and it's touched on in the vision, but you know, their potential as performance spaces, as you know, for where space permits, and I recognise that books can easily be damaged, but the potential for messy play, for all sorts of, but you know, poetry jams, there's limitless potential there, whilst I know in certain locations libraries are already housed in sort of in buildings where other cultural activities already take place, in others they aren't. And so I think if to actually just go down a road that is purely functional would be regrettable. So I think an emphasis on those on the arts and culture in libraries as well, because they are already places that are sort of well set up for aspects of that. Councillor Mitchell.
Propose that we move to the vote.
You can. I'm going to let Councillor Bailey speak first, and then we'll listen to your proposal.
Thank you. It's just a quick point, and it's around co-production. So this is a statutory service that affects obviously a great number of residents. And certainly when we're looking at adult social care, we try and ensure that co-production is at the heart of any redesign of any services. So I would request, obviously I can't make, you know, put forward a recommendation that when those services are being changed, co-production does lie at the heart of them, because I'm obviously not clear. I don't know what's going to come forward to Cabinet, but I think that co-production I would ask that co-production really is at the heart of that, so that we're involving our communities and not doing to our communities, which I think is not the best way forward. So it's about shaping our services with our communities. Thank you.
I think that's I agree myself, and I think that's important, and I think it touches on also on Councillor Ketchin's point about the management of this process, because the experts in what communities need are those communities, and you know, the experts in how to deliver that may be elsewhere, but I think I mean, obviously saying co-productions become very trendy. I like the little X that the young people use, you know, so Libraries X Citizens Advice Bureau, I think is, although I'll have to find out from a young person whether you actually pronounce it X or say something different. Councillor Mitchell.
The advice of the monitoring officer, but I understanding orders, an order to call to the vote has precedence, and we then proceed to a vote. But
okay, so are we happy? So we've got these recommendations here. My feeling is that they represent a sort of something of a consensus view, but are we happy therefore to take them en bloc, or do people want to vote on them individually?
individually, because I think some of them might
Okay.
need tweaked.
Okay. So turning therefore to recommendation 1, that the decision be deferred to allow this, I mean, so yeah, so do we want therefore to debate each one individually or just to vote on them?
I think we discussed it at the time they were put forward. I would suggest we move to the vote individually on each item.
Okay. So, well, let's do that then. So on recommendation 1, can I see a show of hands in favour? Oh, I need a proposer and a seconder for that. I've got Councillor Richardson proposing, Councillor Julian seconding. Okay, and now can I see a show of hands in favour? Thank you. So that is the recommendation of the committee. On recommendation 2, I have Councillor Richardson proposing, Councillor Stevens seconding. Can I see a show of hands in favour on that? That's, oh. Thank you. Those against? And abstentions? Oh, sorry. Okay, Councillor Abbott against and 3 votes, 3 abstentions. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Hedgend.
Just before you go to 3, I'd just like to change was my sort of recommendation to change some of the wording from accountable officer to named person. The reason for that is accountable officer suggests it has to be a DCC staff member, and I would suggest it may not be, should Cabinet decide that. So a named person or a named manager might be too specific. The connotation of it being specifically that, you know, we might get an outside individual to do this.
Right. But I mean, I suppose, well, Cabinet can take this on board or ignore it as it likes, of course. But I mean, I'm just thinking that named person might be too restrictive if we were to give it to, say, an organisation.
I think it's a more open proposal for Cabinet to discuss. I'm not strongly married to it. You know, it's whatever the views are, I'm happy with.
And we can put person there if you want, and then we can see what the committee thinks about it. Okay.
Could we have a wonderful compromise and have dash or slash person, so we have both of them in the recommendation?
Thank you. I mean, the thrust of this, and this is what I mean, you know, Cabinet listens to is that there's sort of due consideration given to the governance and implementation of the transformation process, isn't it? I mean, that's really what we're getting at. So if there's any doubt in your minds, then okay. So do we have a proposer for this recommendation? A seconder? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Those in favour? Okay. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Councillor Abbott abstains. Thank you. Recommendation 4. So, I mean, I don't know. This seems a bit insulting, really. Looking back on it, perhaps. Shall we? I mean,
I don't mind if you get rid of it.
Sorry?
I don't mind if you get rid of it.
Okay, its proposer doesn't mind if we get rid of it. Are we happy to get rid of that one? Yeah, okay. Recommendation 4, he said again, the numbering having redone itself by computer magic. Are we happy with that one? Okay, can I have someone to propose that? Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Julian seconding, or let's switch those around. Councillor Julian proposing, Councillor Mitchell seconding. Those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. Councillor 5, Councillor. Recommendation 5. So this is sort of accessibility and sort of tailoring of services to specific user groups, etc. Councillor Richardson proposing. Do you want to speak, or are you seconding, Councillor? Seconding. Okay. Councillor Kearney seconding. So those in favour? Thank you. Are you just getting an early recommendation? I mean,
no, I just wanted to add to as we go to the next one, which was my recommendation.
Do carry on.
Just that improvements should be deliverable in the short term, essentially. Just wanted to get away from the idea of embarking on wide-scale changes that are going to take a long time to deliver. So improvements deliverable in the short term, just to add to that.
Okay, I mean, I have that. I admit that one gives me pause because, like, yes, obviously we want, you know, what I think are called quick wins, but also I think it would be contrary to the intent behind LGR, if not the effect, if we limited ourselves to a vision that didn't go beyond LGR. That I don't. My understanding is that we're not being asked to sort of prepare for death, but we're asked to kind of hand on the baton, so
we won't know until July what is happening. So making a decision like that on something that we really don't know about after July, and even when it comes to July, the government might say, oh, we're waiting till August. We don't know what is happening, and until we do know what is happening, I think that is not the, we can't consider it because we can't consider the unknowns. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell.
I feel it should be left as open as possible and as stopped after ended without the additional point on, because the point is there are legal requirements upon local authorities and what they can spend in the final year before transformation, if we're involved in transformation. So therefore, I'm sure our officers are fully aware of our legal requirements and what we can do, and will take account of that when they're making recommendations to the committee, because I know at level of City Council, any spending over 100,000 in the last year of a local authority is controlled. So I think, you know, I rely on our officers to be aware of the impact of local government reorganisation and what can be delivered within this timescale available. So I think it doesn't need that additional wording at the end.
Could I suggest that we say either eliminate short term and just say and deliverability, because that would cover it without restricting it. I mean, obviously, I think that.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Yes, Chief Exec.
I think it's important to point out the fundamental principle of those reorganisations ahead of us is a principle of transition, not transformation, following the decision. That's how significant the challenges will be in the councils in Devon and the timeline it's been set. So I think in that bit about being transparent with the public, it is important that you do recognise there has to be a consideration of the implications of LGR, even within the next financial year. If the timeline goes ahead as is, a structural change order would be in place by November of this year, and that principle of transition, not transformation, will come into effect. And that's based on the documentation and the Surrey reorganisation that's taking place at this moment in time.
Thank you. Yes, so I think, but I think this recommendation now picks that up and covers it. I think so. If so, Councillor Reid, you proposed this, I think, and are happy still to do so as in its current form. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mitchell, thank you. Those in favour? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. And lastly, I mean, this was my hobby horse. Feel free to dismiss it as you wish. I'm not going to. I'll propose this from the chair.
I'd just like to ask, is this part of the statutory provision, or is this the sort of stuff that Libraries Unlimited does out of the extra money that it gets in? So that this, in a way, is, I'm just benefiting from the nods around the room. This is not for us to comment upon.
I will not be silenced. I think, well, you know, there's a lot. I think the whole point of the transformation transition, the future vision, is that it's about providing non-statutory services, and I don't think that and working with Libraries Unlimited and other partners to do so. So I don't think we're excluded from commenting on that. I would accept.
So you're quite right. We're talking about statutory revision. This isn't the statutory provision, but I think the emphasis on the fact of the vision's a little bit wider probably does pick it in. But you are quite right. This isn't part of the statutory provision. It's the niceties that we get around the edges not delivered from this contract. If that gives you any clarity at all, Chair.
Thank you. Who? Oh, Councillor Ketchen.
I think it would be improved by just, rather than saying cultural events, which is obviously something that's close to your heart, just saying non-statutory services, which is a wider issue which we're all talking about. It speaks to the hub model, which was what we're really talking about, which includes cultural events.
Bingo, I'll take that for the sake of an early ending and lunch. So, Councillor Kearney.
Thank you for indulging me. I'll be swift. I think that looking at the library more as some place which is going to at some point have to look to earn money for itself. When you look at the footprint of the library and the money that it could generate, which would in effect save it itself. So if you're using it for other things, the money that it makes goes into refunding it. So we keep both the library, but other people get to use it as well. And I think that's where that sits, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, I must admit that the idea of it being a revenue generating opportunity hadn't occurred to me, but I think that is something that is for to be explored down the line. But thank you. Okay, so that's how it stands at the moment. Well, if we're going to go this route, can we have and something about continuing to explore possibilities for expanding this. There you go. That'll do. Go on then. Councillor Mitchell.
Not wishing to upset your chair, but could I just suggest, I think the opening wording is a little heavy. I think it should be consideration is given to the opportunity rather than emphasis placed, because we appear then to be putting that in a higher pecking order than anything else anybody might wish to use a library for. And I think we're just saying this should go into the pot rather than be top of the pot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if when this comes to Cabinet, Councillor Cottle-Hunkin, you could consider it rather than emphasise it, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Right, in which case, come on, let's get this over with. Do I have a proposer for this recommendation as it now stands? Oh, right. And a seconder? Yes, well, we can pick 2 from 3. Those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Abstentions? Councillor Abbott abstains. Wonderful. Well, I believe that concludes, yes, concludes this meeting. And I would thank the committee for its forbearance in allowing a rescheduling of the meeting that we had originally planned for the 25th of June to the 21st of July, which will be our next meeting. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you very much for your work, and thank you to members of the public for your input and for your attendance this morning, those of you online, and thank you. Oh, I'm going to give it gavel.